Welcome to the Stand Up Speakeasy. I'm Sareth and I'm your host of the show. And I bring on guests from all over the Central Time Zone because I was supposed to go on tour before COVID hit. And well, COVID hit, and I didn't get to interview all these cool comics on the show. And it's just kind of like a secret society so far. And their friends and fans and foes and I can jump into the chat box during this time, and then I'll release them in January, one by one, and every day. Hopefully, I stockpile them up all the way up until May or something. But without further ado, I'm gonna bring on my pal Dan Garcia. Hey, Dan, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing good. Doing
Awesome.
really good.
Thanks for being on the show today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. And so you're a Latino-based stand-up comic, producer, and filmmaker in Chicago. Why did you get into stand-up and producing and filmmaking?
It started way back when I was 13 years old. Honestly, really, when I was a kid, I did improv or something like in school, and I was like, wow, this is really fun. And it always was like this gem of a memory in my brain. But it wasn't until my 30s that I was actually, hey, let's go take a class. Went and took classes at IO for improv, and Second City for writing. And I found over some time that, first of all, taking those classes were really expensive. It's like $600 a month.
Cool.
Yeah, it's like a lot. And I also found out that I was not that good at improv. So I stuck with the writing. And at the end of that Second City program, and I don't know, $3,500 later or whatever it was, we put on a show, and it went really well. And it was really cool seeing the things that I wrote, become to life on stage. But also, while you're watching the performance, you're like, hey, that guy is getting all the laughs. Those are my words. This is what we put together. And there's someone else on stage and they're getting the laughs. I'm not really getting the credit. So that was what made me first start considering like, hey, I want to try to be the person on stage. And stand-up is, I think, the quickest way to do that. You just go to an open mic, put your name on a list. There you go. Good luck, right? I found out I wasn't really that great at stand-up either. When I started, it was hard. It's hard for everyone, I think. I don't know, some are naturals, but over time, I really grew to love it, and stand-up has been the thing. I actually was trying to do more at the beginning, more like sketch and stage, but I had this idea for a show I was going to call like Open Psych Night, and the idea there was that we would have comics come on stage, do 8 minutes, and then sit down and talk about the real life problems for like 4 or 5 or 6 minutes. And this was, as I said, like years ago, maybe 5, 6 years ago, I had this idea. But it was only until like 3.5 years ago that I'm like, oh, I'm going to do it, but I have to be good at stand-up to host. And I just kind of got wrapped up in other projects, never did that one. But that's still something I'd like to see in the future, to actually put that show up.
Indeed. And as a filmmaker, you've spent your time writing and filming comedic sketches for the Unlikely Friends comedy YouTube channel, which is on the bottom below and in the description box below. So subscribe to their channel; that'd be fantastic. But how did you get involved with the Unlikely Friends comedy folks?
So I used to do a lot of filmmaking with like Second City Film School when they first started up. I had some friends in there. But Unlikely Friends actually came about in a more roundabout way. It's none of the people I used to work with are in that project. I used to run an open mic and I'd film the sets there. And a comic, like 3 years ago, a comic, Jamal Gushan, came and he said, hey, I heard you had a camera. And he wanted to talk about some film ideas. We actually didn't end up at that time pursuing it. But then years later, Jamal was actually the one that kind of got everyone together, and it's this ragtag group of people that didn't really talk or didn't really hang out. Our only real connection is that we were stand-up comics in Chicago, and we were interested in doing this thing. So that's basically how we formed the group. And we've kind of we've had people come in and out. We've done 2 seasons, and it's kind of on hold right now due to the pandemic, but we're writing. We're actually doing a little writing trip to a lake house this weekend to get some more things on paper. But yeah, it's basically started with Jamal just grabbing people and saying, hey, let's do this. And those of us that were really motivated to do it are still in.
Most definitely. And the widely fun open mic you ran was the low-key karaoke that combined despair open mics with the support of amateur karaoke. What are some of your fondest memories from that?
It's definitely those late night sets that you don't expect to be good. That's another mic I ran that went pretty late. Was nice about the karaoke is always kind of brought the room back up, but after midnight, it's hard to keep that energy, keep that attention, especially if people have been waiting. Um, so my fondest memories are definitely those late night weird sets. But I think the number one thing was the sing-alongs when everyone would sing along with the performer that was doing the karaoke after the set. We only really did like a verse and a chorus. So when everyone was singing in the room, we let that run a little longer and kind of bring it all up. So really those sing-alongs were great. On a Tuesday night, it was really fun.
Indeed, most definitely. And you've performed at bars and clubs throughout Chicago, including the Laugh Factory and the Comedy Bar. What are some of your favorite memories from those venues and other venues that you've performed in?
Well, what's really interesting is when I was first getting booked at the Comedy Bar, I was pretty new to comedy, maybe 6 months in, and I was so new, I didn't realize what I had and this opportunity that I had. So I kind of didn't push it as far as I could have with those bookings. And but part of it was the show is called the Tomato Throw Show. That was kind of like their audition show, sort of, or the show where they give people shots. And they give the audience these plush tomatoes to throw at you if they don't like your jokes. So it's punishment enough, especially for me, a newer comic, 6 months in. I had a few things that hit hard, but I was still learning, still figuring it out. But my favorite memory of Comedy Bar is doing the Tomato Throw Show, and my parents drove in. They live in Joliet, and they were sitting in the front, and my mom was like, as the tomatoes bounced off the stage for each of the acts, she was like collecting them and building this pyramid. She didn't want people to be able to throw tomatoes. She thought it was mean, but it didn't stop them. There's plenty of tomatoes. Her little pile did nothing, but it was just funny that was her mindset. Is like, well, if I collect the tomatoes, I could stop throwing it at these poor comics. So seeing my mom with that little pyramid. My favorite Laugh Factory memory is I did a competition show and ended up winning it. It was really, really fun. It was Verified Laughs, I think last October. I had a really good set. And yeah, it was just a good feeling to come out with a win. Some good riffs in there. It was a really good time.
Indeed, most definitely. And with the tomatoes, it reminded me of Fozzie Bear and him saying Waka Waka. And yeah, and like I remembered when my parents saw me performing at a comic club, and it was their only time too, because it was so bad. And they're like, "We don't know why we don't get any of your jokes, but we'll support you." So here's money for your tour. And I'm like, "Oh, you guys are fantastic. Thank you."
That's great. Yeah, it's nice to get that support from the parents, and not everyone's that lucky, but yeah, their parents are so cool.
Indeed, most definitely. And so, prior to the pandemic, you produced many shows, including Bomb Ass Set, Rent Money, Apocalypse Comedy, and Foreplay Fridays. What are some of your favorite memories from each of those shows?
I think Bomb Ass Set, we maybe could have done a better job promoting that, but we had so many other shows going at it at the same time. And that one was not an independent show. We run a lot of them ourselves, produce. And that's the Unlikely Friends crew as well that runs those shows. But Bomb Ass Set was this show at I.O., and we actually got brought on by the guy who created it, Robel Orega. And what he did is he took stand-up, and the format was basically stand-up is informing improvisation. So you'd get two stand-ups, two improvising teams. The stand-ups would then perform their earliest jokes. 3 minutes. The whole point is to do bad. You're supposed to bomb. It's not a good feeling, but it's like, these are all jokes. They weren't supposed to be good. So you do your bad jokes, and then the team improvises based on those jokes. So it made for a really fun show. I think the first one, we had some great comics on, Nick Ogle, Skylar Higley, and the improv team was Preach, which is an amazing improv team here in Chicago. And it was just a very memorable show. For the comics, though, at the end, you get to come out and do your hottest eight, so that the audience leaves, laughing hard and remembering that you're good and not that horrible bomb set you had. So that first show was just a high point. But it's just our other ideas. Rent Money was a great concept from my colleague Jamal Gushan, where we would take half of the door and raffle it off I think that first show we gave out almost $500, maybe a little more than $500. Could have been 600. Not quite rent money, but definitely all your utilities. Well, it depends how many roommates you have, I guess. That was a really great concept, but hard to pull off. Um, that was really cool. Well, Foreplay Fridays was one of our like my favorite things to do every first Friday of the month. We were in like this Flatiron Arts building, this like crazy arts warehouse basically, and there's all these like artist spaces that are opened up on the first Friday, and we would kind of just try to shuffle all these drunk people into our room and perform comedy, and that was just, it was a hot show. It was good. I think that's the one I'm going to miss the most. Uh,
And
and there's one more, like Apocalypse Comedy. That was like my brainchild and baby from back when I started. I did that instead of the show where we talked about our feelings. But at the end of that show, we'd always end with a human sacrifice. We would murder a comic. We called it Kill and Be Killed. So they would, three people would perform, and I was trying to give like newer comics shots because I was newer when I created it. So it was like these short sets. The audience would vote for their favorite, who got money to come back the next show, and then we'd like murder them like with ritualistic, killing implements. We did like stabbings, electric chairs, gunshots. We burned someone alive, and all just like effects in the playground theater. So it was really just, it was very experimental. It was really hard. It was hard. Probably my co-producers would probably agree, probably harder than it needed to be, that show. But yeah, some of the good ones and some of those kills are just super memorable. Just really great time.
sounds like a fun time for sure, indeed. And so, the organization that you'd like to help raise funds for is the Planned Parenthood of Illinois, and why did you choose those fine folks?
I mean, I think right now, unfortunately, women's reproductive rights are sort of like, it seems like they're under attack. It's just a worthwhile cause. I'm here in Illinois, so I'm trying to help the people local to me, just so that we have resources. And I just think that it's a great organization that we should all be supporting. And hopefully, nothing comes of the changes at the Supreme Court in regards to women's reproductive rights, but it is a concern. So I thought it'd be a good time to show our support and donate to Planned Parenthood of Illinois.
Most definitely, indeed. And so, this portion of the show is where I was planning on asking you questions on my tour, because I was hoping to interview as many comics as I could on this tour. And so, with that being said, we'll jump right into it. And we spoke earlier your first time doing stand-up, so we'll go back to that, and which is the first question: what inspired you to perform stand-up comedy?
Yeah, it was definitely that first show idea, open psych night, and I wanted to be a good host. And when I started stand up, as I mentioned, it wasn't great, and it kind of led me down like this spiral of trying to get better, and then just kind of getting sucked in to stand up, and kind of letting that take over most of my evenings. So yeah, it was basically just this show concept. And it just led to, as many comics might tell you, like a downward spiral of open mics and late nights and God knows what else.
Indeed, most definitely. What was the feeling like when you first performed stand-up?
I'm sorry, what was
the feeling like when you first performed stand-up?
The showing?
The feeling like, what was the feeling like?
Feeling. Oh yeah. I was pretty tense, to be fair, to be honest, and that's probably why I was struggled so much early on. Is I was very tense, and it took some time to really like loosen up. And I think when a comic that struggles when they starts to find one joke or two jokes that start working, like that really can like turn it around. But I think the way that a scene, at least the Chicago scene, is if you get seen early and you're not great, it's hard to like get rid of that mentality from some people. They won't believe, oh yeah, like so and so got better. It's been 3.5 years. It's been 4 years. Like they're better. So I think they're still coming up against some of that, where I'll go to a show and someone will be like, hey, like kick this off. And then I'll just rip it, and everyone will be like, oh my God, what happened? Dan got much better. So yeah, I think that anxiety and that tenseness, especially, like I get it still with some open mics. Like if I'm number 25 on a list, I'm probably gonna start getting a little bit of stress just sitting there and waiting, So yeah, but obviously being loose is the way to get laughs. Being comfortable. Without that, you're dead before you can get started.
Most definitely. And what are your favorite comedy specials and comedy record albums?
Right now, I'm getting really into Mark Norman. I didn't really know about him until a couple months ago, and somebody suggested I check out Mark Norman, and he's got like a YouTube special that's pretty good. I like the one on Spotify. I forget the name of that album, but he's just really smart. I like his joke structure. It really kind of reminds me of the way that I kind of build and deliver jokes. So it's a good study. Um, Other than that, I saw before the pandemic Nate Bargatze, and he is super funny live. He crushed it. I think that he's really good, especially like clean comedy, which I don't really do. Um, Nate is just solid.
Indeed, most definitely. And a lot of those folks have been on TV and film. And we know what your favorite sitcom, sketch shows, and comedy films are.
Oh wow, sitcoms. I don't know. It doesn't probably doesn't count as a sitcom, but I've been watching a lot of like Netflix series. Like I do like an Amazon series, The Boys. I think it's really good. It is certainly a drama, but it has comedic aspects, obviously, to it. I think that that's super awesome. Um, Movies, I'm actually 38. I'm looking pretty good. I don't know how I did it. It'd be brown, I guess. But my girlfriend and I have been, since we're locked in, have been watching like older comedies that we remember. And I'll have to say, Basketball is not a good movie. I thought Trey Parker, Matt Stone from 1998, the Basketball, terrible movie. I thought I liked it. I really did. Turns out that's not the case. Um, but I think it's just really like I don't, can you even call it classics? I think those movies that you watch the first time and the first time it can never compare, like Old School. Like you could watch Old School again if you wanted to, but the first time I watched that movie, it was hilarious. So I kind of reach back to I'm as an older guy, older movies like that. When I think about like what comedic movies do I really like?
Indeed, and sketch shows.
Chappelle was. What I really love about Chappelle is everyone be like he's the greatest, but if we really look at it, every sketch show is hit or miss. Like there was definitely plenty of Chappelle shows that were misses, but overall it was just so incredible. I think they did a lot of things that weren't really being done and talked about in a way. But I'm going to reach back again, like super, super far to In Living Color. I thought In Living Color was so good. The Wayans brothers are hilarious. And they did like a reverse SNL where the whole cast is black, but they have the token white guy who is Jim Carrey. So, years ago, that was it for me. I still think about In Living Color a lot.
Indeed, I love that show. Like my favorite sketches all from that show are the dozens with like Jamie Foxx and he battled Ed O'Neill on one of the episodes and the sketches and like I would mimic that and talk about my friends' moms at school and when I was in middle school, and so it's just like, oh man, and like you, I'm 37, but like Asians don't raisin, and so I just say that, and it's just like it's fantastic. So but yeah, and then what are, if you can go on tour with any comedian locally and internationally known, which comedians would you like to go on tour with?
I mean, this is maybe it's a cheap. It's cheap, but definitely my crew: Jamal Gushan, Jessica Mance. Those are like we're probably the original three, I believe, left from Unlikely Friends production. So we were like the original members who stuck with it the whole time. They are incredible comics. We ran Foreplay together, Bomb Ass Sign Rep Money. So like we do everything together. So I would definitely go with them. That's for sure. Honestly, for like a big headliner name, I would go with one of those first two guys. If I ever had the opportunity to even just do a guest spot at a Garcia show or a Mark Norman show, that would be like heaven to me. That would be insane.
Most definitely, I agree. And there's some cool cats. I love like Nate Bargatze's album, Tears from a Clown, or something like that.
Yeah. I'm always bad with the album names, but
Yeah,
yeah,
me too.
it was on Spotify, and that one's a really good one.
Yep, I agree. And let's see here. And the way he talks is like he doesn't yell or nothing. He's just chill, and like easy on the ear, just fantastic.
Yeah, and he kind of like has this just this stance, you know, he stands still, he talks very, you know, in his cadence that's really good. And you compare it to like Sebastian Maniscalco or somebody who's like so physical and just all over the stage. It's cool that there's all these different, you know, ways to perform comedy and make people laugh.
Indeed, most definitely. And if you can get roasted by five comedians, past and present, which comedians would you like to get roasted by?
Oh my God. That's rough. You know, I'd like to hear it. Definitely, I think I'd like to hear what Chris Rock would have to say. I don't. I know one of these guys would be like, "Look, I don't have time to roast this fucking guy. We're not sure who Dan Garcia is." But if they were invested in it, I'd love to hear Chris Rock's take. Dangerfield. Let's bring him out of the grave and let's hear what Dangerfield has to say. I don't think Bill Hicks really roasted anybody. He just got mad and yelled at the audience. So I mean, he could yell at me. That'd be interesting. I always looked at Hicks as sort of like philosophical growth. When I started listening to some of his stuff, I kind of thought about, you know, more than comedy. I thought about religion and stuff. So it'd be great for Hicks to tell me I'm doing a bad job with my comedy and saying something. You know, I'm telling people to use condoms. I don't use condoms, but it's funny that people don't, and I tell them to on stage, and we all laugh together because it's never going to happen. So maybe Hicks could roast me on the topics that I'm choosing. Who else? Two more. You know, Joan Rivers, I felt like she was somebody that always kept it real. Like she would roast me in a friendly but brutally, painfully honest way. And it'd be great to get that feedback. And you know what? The last one, I'm just gonna throw Jeff Ross in there because he needs work. You know what I mean? Let's get Jeff Ross out, give him some money. He could do his roast. Maybe I think that's all he does anymore is those Friars Club shows. So get Jeff Ross to top it off. He can host. You know.
Most definitely. And you've what do you see your comedy career in the next 5 years?
You know, I always have trouble with this question in any aspect because I'm like any plan that's 5 years out, like who knows what can happen? A global pandemic, you never know. Honestly, in 5 years, I really would love to be able to support myself doing comedy. I'm a software engineer, and it's a little tough to meet that gap. It's a little different. You know, comedy earns nothing, software engineering earns, you know, good money. So to find some way to make enough in comedy where that could be less of a focus for me, or, you know, maybe I could do something part-time if I needed to supplement income, but definitely getting to that place would be great. You know, touring would be awesome. I'm not sure if I ever really saw myself as a grinded out and travel the country in a car kind of comic. But, you know, nowadays that we're also connected, maybe that's not as needed to like hit every single city, but definitely want to be known as a comedian in Chicago, in LA, in New York. And to get there in 5 years is quite a lot of work, especially, you know, who knows when we're going to be able to travel again. So, you know, those things. The biggest one, though, stand-up comedy aside, would be great to sell and be able to make a script, like film something that I've either written or, you know, some of my colleagues have written and then get paid to make it. I would love to get paid to make it because selling a script and sending it off is fun, but, you know, you lose a lot of control and creative control. So continuing with Unlikely Friends comedy and our filmmaking and getting to a point where we can be trusted to, you know, put together a short film, feature film sort of thing.
Indeed, most definitely. And you've done I believe improv at the Second City, and produced, and you've made films. And what other forms of comedy would you like to venture off into, like comedy writing and acting, etc.?
I like being in front of the camera. Actually, I'm getting much better at it than I was. It's still, again, so different than stand up. But my like writing and like directing seems to be a little bit more fun as far as like that creative control of what we're filming and what it will become. So I'm definitely more interested in those aspects, but especially with the budget, like you got to be in your own stuff. You know, I always want to pay people or compensate comics or talent. So having people on film sets for like an 8-hour day Generally, we try to compensate with food and drinks and get good stuff, not like microwave pizza or something. But yeah, acting has been really good. I kind of want to be more in like the behind the camera, behind the camera. So writing and doing the stuff behind the scenes, and getting finding really good comedic actors, because man, like the performances that we've had by some people in some of our sketches are just like, they blow me away. I'm like, you guys are great.
Indeed, most definitely. And what is your favorite joke a comic has ever written?
Oh, what is the favorite joke a comedy's ever written? That is tough. That's a tough question. I know, you know what? I don't even know whose joke this is. But I remember when I was really young, there was a comic just on one of those late night shows. They used to, like, I don't know, in the late 90s, they would just put comedy on TV, which there's no TV anymore. But the joke was, he was basically telling, it was the rules for being the side chick. It's like, here are all the rules. And the joke was, rule number 1 is, bitch, you're number 2. Which I thought was just, I'll never forget that. I am not like, fuck boy or whatever. I have a girlfriend, that's my girl, but that side chick joke, oh, perfect. So perfect.
That's hilarious. And let's see here. What experience would you like your audience to take with them after a set is over?
I just want people to be happy. To be honest, I just want them to be happy. I just want to make people laugh. I think I eventually in my comedy, and I should probably put this on the 5-year plan, is to say more important things on stage and actually make people have more of a reaction than just to laugh and enjoy themselves. But right now, it's just to entertain. I think people are down, dude. You know what I mean? Things have been rough. So I think, one of the last sets I had, the audience was pretty tight at this show, and I had a rough start, but then I was able to really get them, and I think that made me feel really good. And it's finally like, geez, these people are like, they're tight, they need to laugh. So honestly, the takeaway is, I hope you're happier than before I started. That's really, I hope you're happier after the show than before the show, and if you are, then we've done our job as comics.
Indeed, most definitely. And let's see here. This part of the show is where I have you nominate my future guests to be on the show at the stand-up Speakeasy. And Dan, who is your favorite open micer that you'd like to see on the show?
There's I have, you know what? I'm not gonna get into it. I was like, there's this one guy, but he's a little rough around the edges. And I'm like, you know what? Let's stay soft around the edges. There's this guy, Hugh Thomas, who I think is so funny. He's like a little bit of a younger guy. He would come to the Mutiny open mic I ran, and he was in school for software engineering, so I was always kind of paying attention. But he's like, the guy is hilarious, and he's been booked at Zanies and stuff. So certainly open micer plus for Hugh, but he's definitely really good, and I like him a lot. There's got to be a second now. I really want to make a second nomination. Sarah Volpio is super duper funny. She did a show for us. She was at a foreplay, and we had like a bunch of technical problems. We had to like move the venue last minute, and like the microphone died, and like the lights weren't on, and the ice machine started going off, like all of these problems. And she was so funny that she was able to make all of that disappear while we were like behind the scenes. We're like trying to fix the light and get some more batteries for this wireless mic and pull the plug on the ice machine. And, without lights or a microphone, she's able to pull the pull the audience in as a comic and control the room. I was like super impressed. Plus, she helped my show because I was producing. I'm like, we really blew it here as producers with no lights or mic and an ice machine going off. But yeah, she killed it. So definitely, I would say those two, probably good nominations.
Most definitely, indeed. And let's see here, your favorite host?
Zacho Ryan. I don't know if you know Zacho, heard of Zacho, but he is so funny. I recently saw him hosting a Laugh Factory show in Chicago. Everybody's, spread out. There's plexiglass everywhere, trying to be COVID conscious. and it's a tough room. And he had this situation where he convinced, as a gag, a guy from one table to sit with a group of girls, and that guy was very respectful, and they laughed about it. And eventually, that guy got up and went back to his original seat. But then another man came, was less respectful, and Zacho pretty much made it clear, like, the show won't continue until you go back to your seat. He had the whole audience clapping to go back for him to go back to his seat, but he was doing it in a way that was funny but direct. I think even at one point, the Laugh Factory stage is like lifted up. He like lays down, puts his hand on his head, laying down. And he says, "You see this, sir? You see what I'm doing here? I'm laying on the stage. I've never done this before. You need to go back to your seat." And it was just like hilarious. He's like staring the guy straight in the face. Yeah, Zach O'Ryan, that guy, solid.
Indeed, most definitely. And your favorite featured comic?
Featured. Oh wow. You know what? I feel bad for putting Sarah Volopio back at the other spot. So Kenyon Adamczyk, I think if you've ever gotten a chance to see Kenyon, but I think he comes from one of the Carolinas or something. But he's that guy is a killer. And I feel bad because early on when he first came to Chicago, he had asked me to record a set for him. He was doing a couple features at Comedy Bar. And the first show, I'm like messing with my hair here. The first show, the microphone cord came out. So it blew the clip, right? But then I had to go. And I couldn't get, like, if I could have just stayed another 25 minutes or a half hour, I could have got a second set, which was actually good. So I feel like I blew it. And then 2 other times I tried to get a clip for him. And like, it just seemed like my bad luck that it was either the venue was a nightmare or the set didn't go well. There's something was happening. But Kenyon is super, super funny. The guy's super solid. Hopefully when all this stuff kind of like blows over, he comes back. I mean, everyone comes back. I don't know. He might not be gone for all I know. He could be still killing it somewhere. But yeah, definitely Kenyon Adamczyk.
And he's based out of Carolina, but is there one in Chicago that's you like to recommend?
Oh well, no. Kenyon is in Chicago now. I just don't know where anybody is anymore. Like who is still here? Everything's closed.
Indeed.
Yeah, so definitely.
And your favorite headliner?
Oh. Who do I love to see? You know what? Joey V. Gomez absolutely kills it. I know he was on, I think Bill Burr presents Comedy Central something recently. That guy is just a killer. Or Matty Ryan. That dude also super, super funny. My girlfriend thinks he's like hilarious. She's like, let's watch Matty Ryan on YouTube. I'm like, it's embarrassing for me, but like, we're not watching my sets. Fine. Yeah, those 2 guys are just killers, man.
Awesome. If I may have you help me out with their spelling after the show is over, and then I'll message me on Facebook and then with their names, because I sometimes reach out to the wrong people because I misspell their names. I'm like, oh, wrong person. And I'm like, whoops. So,
yeah, that happens.
Awesome, fantastic. And Dan, be sure to thank you so much for being my guest on the Stand Up Speakeasy this evening, and be sure to follow him on Instagram and subscribe to his YouTube channel and donate to the Planned Parenthood of Illinois and on behalf of Dan, that'd be awesome, and that'd be rad. And Dan, is there final words that you'd like to give to the audience tonight watching at home?
I just, I want everyone to be safe, enjoy comedy safely. Let's bundle up and do some outside shows. I don't know. Let's do that, guys. Let's be safe. Let's stop this thing. And really looking forward to comedy coming back. So thank you for having me on.
You're very welcome, Dan, and thank you so much for nominating my future guests. I'm looking forward to having them on and shining the light on Chicago, and it's a city I love, and I can't wait to go back and visit. So awesome. I'll see you soon, Dan, and I'll send you the link as soon as I publish everything. I'll put everything together, and I'll send it your way.
Cool. Thanks a lot.
You're welcome, Dan. Take care, and for everyone else, stay safe at home, and we'll